Hi, I'm Cache Valley Prepper, and this video is another in the series on Pocket Survival Kit contents. And in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about food procurement, and food preparation options for Pocket Survival Kits. So first, I'll start out with actual food, which I'd rather have an energy bar in the hand than a squirrel in the bush any day. So one of the first things, like if I'll throw something in my pocket or my go bag, or so it'll be in my survival self-recovery core layer in my pocket, or if it makes its way into a Pocket Survival Kit module, one or the other. I carry a two-part kit generally. Cliff bars are one of the things I like to include, but they don't have a long storage life. If you're going to be storing your kit instead of just using it immediately, you might consider non-thirst provoking low moisture ration bars, sometimes called lifeboat rations. And this one here is from a food packet survival general purpose. You can see these if you look up like the contents of a scram bag with the Air Force, or I believe it's used by all the services. One of the components in there are these ration bars, and there's several different flavors. There's cornflakes and chocolate chip cookie, and there's usually two that are kind of a butter cookie type bar, and there's I guess 4 different flavors in all, 5 bars, and then they put in one of these a drink mix, either spice cider or lemon what's it called, iced tea, and they'll put in an Herbox chicken bouillon. They call it a soup and gravy base, and they'll put in some packet of usually wintergreen mints also, and it's pretty well thought out package. This is typical with the military survival gear. If you go with if you don't have access to those, you might go with like a Millennium bar. They're pretty good, and they last a long time too, and it's pretty comparable. They come in many different flavors, which is really nice. A lot of ration bars are just all one flavor, and that kind of sucks. But they'll last a very long time. Any of these lifeboat rations, they'll last a long time, even in the back of your car. So it's really nice to have those. You get a little bit of calories from drink mixes. These are Charms candies. They've been included for years in some of the different survival kits. I know some of the parachute kits came with a couple of packets of Charms candies in them. They're a pretty decent thing to put in a pocket survival kit. They don't take up a lot of space. So that's another option for actual food you can bring with you. Let's move on to food procurement. And first, in food procurement, I would go after wild edibles. If they're available and abundant, you don't have to chase them down. You can just go pick them, or you know, lots of times they do need to be processed, or you need to cut them down from up high, so you'll need a knife of some sort. The snap tool, card knife, is a good tool because you can fasten it to a branch and get stuff up high, and it's really good for processing. It's almost like an ulu, so it's about the best thing I think you can fit in a pocket survival kit. That's by Norseman and Tops Knives. After wild edible, you might want to include like an edible plant guide of some sort, so you can not eat a lookalike that could be potentially dangerous. Then moving on to the next food procurement option I would try is fishing. If you have water available that has fish in it, even a novice, someone who's never fished before in their life, have been able to catch fish under survival situations, and in actual survival ordeals. So if you fish all the time, you have obviously much better chances. With the fish hooks, you want to go with the long shank Aberdeen type hook. Is usually, if I went with one type of hook, that's probably what I would go with, because the long shank makes it easy to de-hook fish, and you keep your fingers away from toothed species. And you can also create artificial baits with it. You can use thread to wrap feathers to it, or aluminum, or you can use retroreflective adhesive material from your signal gear, and you can use wood, or you could use trash that you found, styrofoam. You could use feathers, make flies, hair, your own hair, animal hair. So they give you a lot of options with that long shank. If you use a shorter bait holder type hook, there's nothing wrong with having some of those, especially if you're in the mountains. And but I go with smaller size hooks. These hooks are nested, so they go from a very small to larger hook, which gives me a range, and it allows me to fit a lot more hooks in a little tiny space. There's over a dozen hooks in here between the fly and the little jig. I guess there's about 14 hooks in there, and a few split shot and some snap swivels, all in a little teeny tiny package. You might want to include artificial baits. You want, like with hooks, you can catch a large fish with a small hook, but you can't catch a small fish with a large hook. So a lot of these are very small, and they're small for a reason, because they're going in a pocket survival kit, and I may only be able to catch small fish, especially if I'm in the mountains fishing for trout. I need these little micro jigs. Or if I'm ice fishing, these are also glow in the dark, most of them, so I can take my light and shine it on there, and it can help me catch fish under the ice in wintertime. You can use fishing line, or you can use thread. This is Kevlar, about 85 pound trip line. It's a lot like braided fishing line. You can use the same knots with it. I also have here some coated steel knottable leader wire for creating fishing leaders or using a snare wire. I like that it's knottable, so you don't have to have crimps. Here's one way to store crimps and snap swivels is to thread them on a safety pin. You can also store your hooks that way, organize them by threading them on safety pins. But if they're going to be in your pocket survival kit, you might want to put little bits of wire insulation, just strip it off of wires and stick them on the hooks to blunt the points inside your kit so they don't puncture something you don't want punctured in your pocket survival kit. Fishing line, obviously if you're going to be in salt water, you want stainless steel hooks, and you may want some hooks that are a little larger as well, and heavier line like this. This is 30-pound line here, heavier than you would want for the mountains, but great for salt water. So, you can adjust the thickness of your line to where you are, but, you can catch fish on this Kevlar thread here just fine, just like braided fishing line. Or you can use that to create a hand line and then use monofilament for leaders to increase your chances if you want. Pop a snap swivel on there and build yourself a hand line using your thread. You can also include dehydrated baits. This is scented dehydrated bait that came with military speed hook snares, which I don't carry in my pocket survival kit because they're too big. I carry them in my go bag. But the bait would be great either for trapping out of the water or fishing in the water. And I modified this little Ziploc bag by reinforcing it with some 100-mile-an-hour tape and punching a couple holes in it so I can use it as a float, or I can put a stone in that bag and use it as a sinker if I need to. So you always need to be thinking how you could use your equipment and modify it to get the job done that you need done. After fishing, I would probably try snares, and any of these could be used to create snares, or you could use your knife to and also cordage to create some Paiute deadfalls, or you could whittle some figure 4 deadfalls with your knife. After snares and traps, you can try hunting. You can create a throwing stick, or one thing that you could include in a pocket survival kit. I usually don't include this in there unless I'm in a coastal or swampy or area, or in a riparian zone along a river. I just have some zip ties in here with it. You don't need those. You just use the line, but it's just a gig that's compact. It's a little sandy from being at the ocean, and it just has a little tube on here, and when you remove that, you have a nice paralyzer gig that you can then attach to and I machined some slots in it to accept the zip ties well, but you could also just use your cordage to secure that to a stick and create a nice gig. very effective one. And if you had some surgical tubing in your go bag, you could create a fling spear with it, and have a very, very effective weapon for fishing. Beyond, you also could use that surgical tubing to create a slingshot or power an otter board, or you could carve an otter board that just uses a sail to get your line out into the water fishing. And one more note on the number of hooks is the reason it's important to have so many hooks is so you can create a trot line or a bank line with lots of hooks on it, because survival fishing is not like regular sport fishing where you can only have 1 or 2 hooks in the water. You know, you just need to use the methods that are going to produce food. And you don't want to take more, you don't want to deplete the area faster than necessary, but if you're not catching fish, you need to increase the amount of hooks in the water, but you can't do that unless you have enough hooks. And they take up so little space, you might as well bring a dozen hooks or 2 dozen hooks, whatever you can fit, and plenty of line. Let's move on to food preparation, which, you know, of course you need fire and you need some type of container, whether it's, this is a bread tin that's flattened, and I mark on there the volume in case I'm working with water treatment. Or you can use aluminum sheeting. You can use a thin stuff, or this is some real thick stuff. You might want to tape the edges so it doesn't cut or puncture anything in your kit with that thick stuff, but you can create a pot out of either of these to cook in. But it's important, like using these low salt, these non-thirst provoking foods have barely any salt in them, like these Urbox, but this could be used to season game that you catch or fish that you catch, as could little seasoning packets. Like these are just from MRE's barbecue seasoning, or you definitely want salt in your food preparation. If you have plenty of water, you don't want to be eating food unless you have plenty of water. But if you do have plenty of water, you're going to want salt if you're used to a Western diet. When I first started as a young man, as I would go on survival trips, you know, it wasn't like it is today. I would carry very little with me, just maybe a pocket knife and a lighter and a bandana, and I can have some water in the car, in the truck, and my rifle or shotgun. But I would bring a can of beans and a bottle of barbecue sauce. So if I came up short, I at least could eat the beans, and the barbecue sauce I could use to flavor my quail or rabbit or whatever small game I was able to hunt. But if you're used to eating a Western diet, and you don't have to try eating a rabbit or a squirrel without salt many times before you'll start including salt in even your pocket survival kit. So, you know, you can sometimes tell you know, how much of this stuff someone's doing, because if they don't have salt in their pocket survival kit, they probably haven't hunted much and ate it right on the spot. So that's kind of food preparation. You might one other thing with food prep, it's better to use this soup and gravy base and create stew, so you don't lose the fat drippings into a fire, and it'll stretch. You can put your wild edibles and the game that you got in your stew, with some of your gravy base and salt, and have that for any meal of the day. But you might want to put these in your kit inside a plastic bag, zip sealed bag, so to keep moisture out of them, so they won't get ruined. So I think I'll leave it at that for now. Hope that helps, and thanks for watching.